Easier on everybody. Thanks, Ted. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. Rebecca, as Ted said. I opened the Vancouver Seed Bank in 2006 with Dana Larson. And we opened it basically in response to what happened to Mark Emery. About 2 to 3 years previously, I believe in July of 2004, the DEA came in to Mark Emery's shop and arrested everyone and took all the seed stock away and prohibited Mark and Marijuana Man and Michelle Rainey from speaking about seeds, from being involved with seeds, setting foot in a shop that was related to seeds. So Mark, who was a trailblazer in the industry in Vancouver, was suddenly completely shut out of everything. And a lot of us lost our jobs too, because the seed business at Mark's shop was a big part of everything. So in response to what the DEA did, Dana and I decided that somebody needed to keep selling seeds, and because Mark was not even allowed to talk about seeds anymore, we had to do it without him. So that's the idea for the Vancouver Seed Bank. And it wasn't just about cannabis seeds. We started to realize that all kinds of seeds were prohibited and all kinds of plants were being demonized. And we need to start changing the way people think about gardening. A lot of people don't realize that cannabis seeds are actually illegal in Canada. Like, you're not actually supposed to sell cannabis seeds, you're not supposed to possess cannabis seeds. If you have your federal exemption from Health Canada, you're still not allowed to buy seeds from me. You're supposed to only buy the one strain that they provide, and it's called Cannabis indica sativa, so. Sounds great. Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize that, and also in Canada, you're not allowed to have poppy seeds. Poppy seeds are technically classified in Canada now as well. So although cultivating poppies is technically kind of a gray area, it's illegal once you start growing too much, and the too much is an arbitrary number. I don't know what that is, but people are starting to get charged for opium cultivation and possession of opium because they have too many poppies in their garden. And it is a problem because it's a cultural thing. A lot of people grow poppies and use them in cooking and in teas, and people don't even realize that it's illegal. So it's definitely a problem in Canada, and it's sort of unheard of as well. In Europe, to say that poppy seeds and cannabis seeds are illegal is ridiculous. In the United Kingdom, it's ridiculous. Like, hemp seeds are especially valued there because they're so nutritious for animal food that they refuse to make cannabis seeds illegal. So in Canada, we're actually very, very right-wing when it comes to the way that we regulate cannabis seeds and all of our garden variety seeds. So the point and the mission statement for the Vancouver Seed Bank was to start providing these seeds again so that people can start cultivating them themselves. So that brings us to the marijuana seeds that we carry. We opened our shop in Victoria as well because there's such a huge, huge gardening community up here. I was surprised if there wasn't already one already functioning, because we fit right into the community perfectly here as well. So we carry all kinds of seeds. We carry Canadian genetics and we carry Dutch genetics. So what does that mean exactly? Well, I would say for the most part, the Canadian strains that we carry probably came up from California in large part during the Vietnam War. We had a lot of people coming up to BC, draft dodgers coming up, and that whole mentality of rebellion came up here as well. And so I think a lot of our genetics are like probably relatives to a lot of California strains, like the Cali O and the Super Skunks. And then there's a lot of stuff that's been bred in Canada and on the islands. Texated Time Warp, it's got its own strain. Like Texada Island has its own strain named after it. So there's a lot of cultivation happening up here as well. But in Canada, we're really, really good at hardy outdoor varieties, and we can have stuff finished in about 6 to 7 weeks. And in Europe and in Holland and Spain and the UK, they like their sativas. They're a little more sativa dominant. Sativas are taller growing, they're longer flowering, they tend to have a more euphoric, energizing kind of an effect. And they tend to be from the equatorial areas of the world, so they're not super happy in British Columbia. So that's why we're a little bit deprived here of the sativas. We tend to get a lot of those indica, the couch-lock body stones, the skunks, the god buds, the cushes. And prohibition has a lot to do with that, because all of those varieties, indica dominant varieties, are naturally really squat growing. They're going to stay like 3 to 4 feet. And that's ideal if you're growing indoors, because you're not going to want a 6-foot plant if your ceiling is 12 feet. So indica dominant strains are commercially popular. They're faster flowering, they tend to be more dense, so you're going to get a heavier yield in a faster amount of time. But after a while you get that couch lock body stone, people sort of get tired of it. So it's nice to have a little bit of sativa in there as well for your daytime kind of smoke. So it all depends on you, and that's why we try to have a huge variety of different strains. We don't want to just carry Canadian stuff, because sometimes people want a little bit of Dutch genetics to add a different little something to the gene pool. So we try to carry all different types. The one thing that we don't carry is genetically modified seeds. Now there is some argument there. Yeah, that's right. The vegetable and herb seeds that we carry, like the tomatoes and the chamomile and that kind of thing, all of the sources for those seeds follow something called the Safe Seeds Pledge, and that means that none of their sources will ever come from genetically modified or anything like that. So we're going to stick to that absolutely as much as possible, even though the varieties are dwindling. Like there used to be a full spectrum of thousands of different varieties of vegetables, and over the last 100 years that's dwindled down quite a bit to maybe 100. So over the years, because of GMO seeds, we're slowly losing all the diversity of the genetics, which is really bad. So it's important for us as people, and as people who survived cultivating over the years, we need to get back to that and start saving our seeds again. Because if we entrust it to the government to do it, obviously it's not going to work. So we really need to start getting back to the land, literally, in that sense. But anyway, back to the genetically modified. Now, a lot of people are worried about feminized cannabis seeds, and you can be concerned, but I don't want confusion in terms of thinking that they're genetically modified, because they're actually not. It's a breeding technique. Cannabis plants naturally will hermaphrodite. Like a female plant, you get males and you got your females. The male doesn't do anything but produce pollen. And if that pollen touches a female, she's going to produce seed. In a stressful environment, a female is thinking, there's no males around, there's no male pollen, I'm going to die, must breed next generation, I'm going to produce my own pollen. So a female produces her own pollen to bring on the next, family generation. With feminized seeds, what they're doing is manipulating that female and stressing her on purpose. And they'll take that female pollen and pollinate another female. So this isn't modifying the genetics, it's manipulating the genetics, because it's something that the plant does in its genome anyway. They're not adding this characteristics, they're manipulating the characteristic. So with feminized, you are getting a hermaphroditic plant with hermaphroditic parentage, and that's why it's really important to know your environment when you're using a feminized seed. You know for sure you're going to get female, but if you're not careful, you could also get a female that wants to be a male. So you want to make sure that everything is nice and stabilized, so that female doesn't ever feel like, ooh, I'm going to pollinate myself because I'm going to die. You just want her to be nice and happy the whole time.
Stress-free environment.
Exactly, totally stress-free. Play music for her and stuff. Yeah, but we can't really do them outside is really the thing. A lot of people want to skip the sexing process, in Canada anyway, and try to do feminized outside. And the catch with that is that no Canadian companies are breeding feminized right now. It's all the European companies. So they're bred in a more temperate climate. They're bred in a place where you can flower into October, late October, early November even, and that's way too long for here. So for Canada, we have to stick with the ones that are bred here that will finish flowering around early September, mid-September. Depending on where you are in Canada, you can do it a bit later. But nonetheless, the feminized ones are just not that appropriate for Canadian outdoor environments because of that hermaphroditic tendency and because they're bred in a more temperate zone altogether. So feminized is good, but only for a particular time and for a particular place. And you definitely don't want to be breeding with a feminized plant, or a plant that you've grown from feminized seed, I should say, because you will get a lot of weird phenotypes from those first few generations. If you're like, oh, I got this really nice Bubba Kush that I got from feminized seed, I'm going to cross it with a blueberry just because I want some seeds from it. You can do that, but they're not going to breed true. You're going to get all kinds of weird variants, and variants of like heights, characteristics, and it's going to take a long time to actually get to a plant that you're going to want to smoke and keep, because those feminized seeds have a lot of things happening in their background to stabilize them and make them stay female like that. So,
because the seed growers don't continue their line. They after about 2 or 3 generations, that's good enough, let's go.
it depends. It depends on the companies, that's for sure. But yeah, like it starts to dwindle out. And a lot of people argue too that feminized plants do lose their potency more quickly over time. Like if you're going to get a true female who's come from a seed from male and female together, you're going to get a more potent plant, and just you're going to be able to clone from that plant a lot longer before you start to see the degeneration happening that you see a lot with the clones of Kushes and stuff like that. And that's why we see like purple Kush starts to degenerate quite a bit, because it's a clone-only strain. You're never going to see purple Kush seed that's pure, because only females exist of purple Kush. So if we want to breed a true purple Kush like cross, purple Kush, where are we going to get that purple Kush male pollen from? It doesn't exist. So that's why people are starting to like stress the single female so she pollinates herself. But you're getting into that really shallow gene pool happening where that hermaphroditic tendency is going to keep coming up over time, and nobody wants that.
Once it's been done once, apparently it becomes very unstable.
Yeah, exactly.
Really unstable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it's frustrating for people because they think, I can take this outside or something and it's going to be great, but then as soon as the weather turns, you're going to have a male-female thing happening and just a generally unhappy plant. Yeah.
Do you have recommendations for strains for outdoor cultivation in this climate?
Yeah, definitely. Like we have particular companies that breed outdoors that specifically have strains for like the island or the interior. Particularly like on our website, vancouverseedbank.ca. You can go to East Island Seed Company in particular. They do 2 strains, the Northern Lights crossed with Dutch Treat and Northern Lights crossed with Hash Plant. Both of those ones finished early September outside, and we've been selling them for the past 5 seasons now, and they've been pretty reliable. There's also Great White North Seed Company. They breed out of Manitoba, so they're actually the only company we have that's not from BC. And they're really, really hardy outdoor varieties, obviously, because they're from Manitoba outdoors. They do the Manitoba Poison, which is a really cool Durban sativa cross. So you're going to get the nice sativa characteristics that you're not really that used to in a lot of the indica dominant stuff that we end up smoking. And so the Manitoba Poison is really popular because it's different. It's that sativa high. It's like nice and creative and more fun. And they also do the early sativa, maple purple. You actually have a lot of choices. Like Canadian companies, they do outdoors really, really well. And you can get some really nice genetics depending on like the time frame. And it's based on you and what you're looking for. Do you want something that's like indica dominant? Do you care about height? Do you want it to stand for like 3 or 4 feet? These types of things. Like it can narrow it down based on all of these different things. So you had a question?
Can we still go retro? Back in the 70s, I had my first psychedelic high on Thai stick.
You can get Thai Lights now from Dr. Atomic. It's pretty
Sorry,
close. We have a strain called Thai Lights from Dr. Atomic.
Thai lights.
It's lights. It's Northern Lights, like 25% Northern Lights and 75% Thai, straight from Thailand. So that's as close as you can get to the old school Thai that you probably know and love.
Vegetables. What type of selection is it? A large? Like, do you have a lot of, say, carrots and?
Yeah, I think right now we have about 4 different varieties of carrots. We have a purple haze carrot. Everybody loves that for some reason. And Snow White carrot, Minion carrot, Chantilly carrot.
Lettuce is like just a lot of garden vegetables. Average.
Oh yeah, totally. It's a one-stop shop. Yeah, some are heirloom varieties, absolutely.
Do you have any overwintering cauliflower?
I think so. We have at least 4 different kinds of cauliflower. One of them's got to be overwintering, for sure. Check out the website because there's lots and lots of information online there, definitely.
Have you come across any studies on the nasty things they use to make feminized seeds?
Well, it depends because different companies use different techniques. And if this is the argument, like say this is Soma's words, okay? And Soma is like the organic guy. Let's say take a female, and at the worst I spray like gibberellic acid or something. They say they spray on the females to stress them. Okay, let's say I do that, worst case scenario. and she's stressed and pollinates, I'm taking the pollen and pollinating a female. So none of the chemicals or anything that stress that female are actually going to be interacting with the female that actually produces the seed. You know what I mean? So you're taking that hermaphroditic pollen and taking it to another female. So the idea is there is nasty chemicals involved. You can use stress with light as well. You can stress them just with giving them crazy light.
And root
Most
temp
people
too.
use the-
Root temperature is stressing too.
Yeah, totally.
Root
They
temperatures.
probably use a lot of different things all at once just to make it really
I
stressful.
play with more root temperatures than you
But
anyway.
you can, like, there's more organic techniques, but you do have to breed beyond that too, because if you're just gonna take that generation of seed, you're gonna get really crazy hermaphroditic tendencies.
It's almost like apple seeds.
Yeah, like apple
Well,
seeds
apple, because
don't
each
breed
one's
through really.
unique. I would always graft them out.
Yeah, totally. Now the new thing here, the last couple years, has been popular is auto-flowering varieties. And auto-flowering means they're not phototropic, like most marijuana plants need that spring light cycle and the summer light cycle in order to know when to flower. Auto-flowering varieties are crossed with a type of cannabis that's not very potent. In Eastern Europe, it's called ruderalis. So it's like a really squat growing, kind of a bushweed, duck's foot kind of looking plant. And it's really not that impressive of a smoke on its own. It just has that auto-flowering characteristic that makes it really quick to finish budding. So we're getting a lot of auto-flowering stuff now, and a lot of people hate it, and a lot of people love it. It kind of depends on what you're doing with it. Because we get a lot of people who are not like 100% committed to the movement. They don't want to take over their whole basement with lights. They're like, I just have a balcony, I just want to have a couple plants in my yard. And the auto-flowering varieties really serve the purpose for those people because they're not really looking for a huge plant, they don't want to have to worry about the light, and they just want to have something that's going to be done at the end of the season. So the auto-flowering stuff is really popular. And right now out of Europe, there's feminized auto-flowering as well, and these are the most idiot-proof ever. You can just put them in the ground, and they finish in 60 days, 60 to 70 depending on the different variety. And you don't need any light. You can have it under 24 hours. You can have it under 12 hours. You just put it outside and give it light, give it water, put it in dirt. And 60 days will be done. It's like a little bonsai, so it stays like, small. But for somebody who doesn't want to have like a huge thing and they just want to have something that's simple, it's the perfect starting point. So even though it may not be the ideal thing for people to start breeding with, or it's not the only cannabis out there, it still has a good time and a good place. So it is appropriate for people if that's your situation. So that's handy also and easy. What's that mean?
You said that seeds are illegal, cannabis seeds are illegal. I find that odd when the fact that in Manitoba especially, they're growing pot for seed. And until they actually run it through and shell it,
You mean like
the edible seed,
the hemp seed?
hemp seed for
Mhm.
consumption.
Mhm.
But how do they tell when it's raw seed? How do you tell the difference? How does the government tell?
They do a lot of testing for the hemp farmers. Ironically,
It's
hemp
harder to
seed
grow
is
hemp.
more regulated
Yeah.
than cannabis seed
Yeah.
and more tightly controlled. It's harder to get a hemp farm license than it is a medical grow license.
Yeah, I remember at the convention,
Yeah,
we were talking about it.
and Blake, when he was down at
Yeah.
the convention, was talking about a bit about how much they will come out and do testing like right on the farm.
Yeah.
So that's how they make sure. They'll come and they'll test, and if it's too high THC, they'll just make you mow the whole damn thing down. You're supposed to get the seeds off them in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Like, they don't let you use your own seeds even.
Hemp
Oh, they
farmers have
can't,
to
they
rebuy
can't
their
keep their
every
seed
year.
for
No.
planting it.
No, they have to rebuy it back from the garden every year.
Yeah, and that's why you can't buy hemp seed, because they're not allowed to ship hemp seed off the farm. That's why you get hemp nuts, hemp flour, or hemp powder, hemp oil.
Right, no, it's processed
The
before it,
seed,
yeah, I
unless they
realize.
sterilize it, isn't allowed off the farm.
Sure.
So, yeah, they're very tightly controlled.
A few years ago, right in the Crescent Valley there, at the beginning of Spokane Valley, a little place there had raw, edible hemp seed for sale.
Yeah, they're not viable, like they've probably been irradiated at that point.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
there must be another, way of treating it, because surely they wouldn't throw out a whole crop of seeds just because they were THC high. would they be able to,
Health Canada would make them destroy it,
they
yeah.
can remove it from?
Not entirely, no.
Nope. We do have viable hemp seed at the store, like industrial hemp seed that we got a few years back, and it's kind of like a prized thing, prized possession, because it's really, really hard to come by. And we use it sometimes every spring for guerrilla gardening. We'll go around and plant hemp seeds in front of police stations and grow a little bit. Yeah, it's a good idea, but they're kind of valuable, so it's something we should.
You didn't bring any to sell, did you?
No, but go to the website because they're on sale online all the time.
Can I just ask a question? That's always on my mind about the different varieties is yield in the auto flowering. If you're only going to grow 4 or 5 plants like outdoors, how much yield would that provide?
With the feminized auto flowering ones, they estimate anywhere between like 30 to 60 grams per plant. So they're really small.
Yeah.
They're like little bonsais. But that's pretty good, for somebody that doesn't really know anything about gardening. So it varies a little bit, but the auto flowering feminized are gonna, probably around 60 to 80 grams. The regular non-auto flowering outdoor stuff, it varies. You gotta look at the genetics. If they're indica dominant, squatter growing, there's so much variance involved in terms of how big it could get. And so you gotta just look at the genetics. If it's Afghani based, indica based, you're gonna have denser buds. So it probably is gonna get slightly on the heavier side, medium to heavy yield, we would say. But I hate pulling out numbers like 100 grams, 200 grams, because it totally is gonna vary, especially in an outdoor environment. But if you look at the genetics, that's really the best thing. If it's a sativa cross, the buds are gonna be big, but they'll be airy, so it might not have the same weight to it in the long run. The indica sativa hybrid, those tend to be really good because you get the big spear-shaped buds, but then you get the indica density. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for, but overall, probably the indica sativa hybrids are the heaviest yields. But you do have to wait probably a week or 2 longer because they have that sativa characteristic to them. So, but know that it varies all the time, depending on the type lights and all that kind of stuff too. It's kind of a hard question. And THC content, that's a really tough one too. CBD and THC content, we get asked that a lot. In Europe, they have a better standardization thing happening. You get 1 or 2 companies that bring in their samples to different places, and a couple of companies will actually, do the THC testing right there for all the seed companies in Europe. So Greenhouse Seed Company, they have all of their THC, CBD, and CBN content percentages listed. And that's still, it's an estimate, and I still, honestly, I couldn't fully explain to you how that even works in a percentage. For me, if you're just going to take a small section of a plant and test that small section, it doesn't really seem like it can give you a fully accurate idea. It can give you an estimation on the potential of the plant in terms of the THC and CBD content, but you're never going to get an exact number. So it's good that they're there, but I don't put too much weight in them because they can totally vary depending on the environment that the plant's growing in. So THC content is good to know. And generally, sativa dominant strains are higher in THC, lower in CBD and CBN, whereas indica dominant strains tend to be slightly lower in THC, but higher in CBD and CBN. So that's why people tend to find more medical pain relief benefits from the indica dominant variety, because they tend to have slightly higher CBD content. But now we're actually starting to see that strains from Spain, there's one in particular from a company called Resin, it's called Canatonic. It's MK Ultra, which is the OG Kush cross, and G13 Haze. So it's an indica sativa hybrid, 50-50. And that one's been testing really, really high in Europe for CBD content. So in terms of pain management, what they're finding now in Europe and also in California is that crossing a strong indica with a strong sativa with a 50-50 percentage is kind of like the best of both worlds coming together, because you're getting a nice THC percentage and a good CBD percentage. So it's a good medication for daytime and evening time. And you can also...
I was just thinking out loud. I mean, you could do a blend though too. I mean, you don't have to just be...
Oh yeah, that's true. Just do a salad if you want to have some super silver haze. And yeah, totally. I guess that's true too, because you're still going to get that CBD and CBN just in 2 different strains. It's so true. Yeah. I'll recommend that next time. question? I'm sorry.
How do you keep from getting arrested if it's illegal to?
That's a good question. I get asked that a lot too. The store in Vancouver, we're on East Hastings, and we did try opening a shop like closer to Mark's store at Cannabis in Hastings, which is a little more downtown area, and we were kind of rejected. Like nobody wanted a pot-related business in that area, so we were sort of forced out of that neighborhood, and we went 12 blocks down Hastings to a sort of more industrially sort of area that's sort of the red light district of Vancouver. So the police have other things going on, and really, although they could arrest us at any time based on the law, I think they really just have other things to do, and they've put us at a low priority. Yeah.
Where's the store in Victoria?
We're in Chinatown in Victoria. There's Biscard Street, and we're in Dragon Alley.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just right down there, little shop. It's perfect, because we don't need a lot of space for seeds.
What's it called?
The Victoria Seed Bank. We have to move places with the city names.
Is it actually a name on the shop?
Yeah, yeah, and there's a little dragon on it. Yeah.
Just wondering about the new reported high CBD strains out of Europe. What are they specking in at it? Do you know?
That's a good question. I forget off the top of my head, but they do have like it's Resin Seed Company that does the strain, and the strain's called Cannatonic. So I'm sure if you look it up online, you'll be able to find it. It's Resin Seed Company has their own website, so they'll probably have it listed on there. But the thing is, in Canada, we're doing the THC test as well, but I'm pretty sure we're using a different machine or something else is going on, because the numbers from Europe and the numbers from Canada don't really seem to line up properly. So I'm really not sure about the standardization across.
What are their claims in Europe now? Do you have any numbers?
Well, in like say the greenhouse seed catalog, THC percentages are anywhere from like 12 to 17%. And the CBD content can be anywhere from like 0.2 up to like 3%. So they're smaller numbers in the CBD zone, but you know, 3 and above is considered high, is my understanding anyway.
One of the last high times we got an article on Catatonic.
Yeah, it's getting popular, that's for sure. And Resin Seed Company is really good. Spain is getting really popular for seed breeding right now. A lot of Holland or Dutch companies, I should say, are moving to Spain because it's a slightly more easygoing environment there, so it's easier for them to breed seeds. So there's a lot of cool Spanish companies as well that are making some interesting genetics that are worthwhile. Any other questions or anything?
I read where California is really into the testing of
Yeah.
even for mites, powdery mildew, all that they'll
It's true.
inject it.
And it's strange in the States, there's not a huge seed culture in the States. Like seeds are really strictly prohibited as well, but people like in Colorado and California, apparently there's lots of clones available. You can buy clones pretty easily all over the place. But here it would be sort of unheard of. We get asked all the time, like, do you guys sell clones? And that'd be awesome, but totally not something that we'd be allowed to do, be immediately cultivation at that point. So feminized seeds are really the closest thing that you can get to clones. And that's better anyway, because you won't be getting the contaminants that you might be getting with clones, like spider mites and powdery mildew and all this kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about when you grow from seed, which is really nice. And a lot of times you don't really know what you're getting with a clone, because when you're getting a clone from a clone from a clone, you're definitely getting a degenerated genetics over time. So it's going to be a little bit watered down. It's not going to be as potent. When you grow from seed, you really notice a difference in terms of potency and yield. It's quite nice.
Thank you so very much for coming here. That was really awesome. It's something that many of us don't know a lot about, so it's very good to learn. So before our next speaker came up, I had to give a little plug for hemp. I really do love the whole plant and embrace it in every way I can. I brought a few things to show you in the front lobby if you have a minute before you leave. I got some hemp insulation from Nepal here. I really love this stuff, and I'm hugging it and showing it off. We could be making and using our own hemp insulation here. They don't export it from Nepal because they don't have trees there, so they use this stuff. And they use it all the time, and we should be too. And I got a brand new hemp jacket. I have it it's been too cold to wear it at the other conventions this year, but, yeah, I eat a lot of hemp seed as well. We were just talking about it. Hemp is the most nutritious food on the planet. It contains all 8 essential fatty acids and amino acids that we need to sustain life. I've been a vegetarian now for over 15 years. I'm very healthy and strong for it, I believe. I eat a lot of hemp. I've actually been even cutting down my protein lately. I think we're really consuming far more protein than we need to, generally speaking, that contributes to a lot of health and environmental problems.